Hey everyone, so what we're going to do today is we're going to go through a full run through of Kudoo's current set of functionality. So I'm going to run through on a demo system. So as you can see over there, we're on a local host. So this is a development server. So there may be a few tweaks and funnies, but generally it's pretty stable. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a full feature set. I'm going to run through a set of test cases and show you the full platform. So what we want to do is we first want to create an account. So what I'll do is I'll create an account here. I'm just going to set my email up as test just to avoid any potential spam. Going to create an account. And what this is going to do is it's going to send an email. So what that does is then it allows you to verify that that email, you do have access to it and you can receive email. So if we look over here, I've just got a local email server. I can verify that email has come through. I can close that there. And what this is going to do is this is going to verify that I have a valid email address and that I can receive communications from Kudoo. So there you go. The email has been verified and I can go back to the sign in. So now I can actually log in with those credentials that I've created. Now what we can see is the very first time you log in, what you're going to see is you're going to see manage companies. You're not going to be associated with a company yet because it's the first time you've logged in. So what happens with Kudoo is you have to perform any functionality, you have to perform it underneath a company. So whether that's your own company or whether it's a company owned by someone else that you've joined. So in this example, I'm going to create a company. I'm actually going to create multiple companies. So then that way we can also see the multi-company functionality, country functionality we have. So you can upload your logo. So we'll just upload Kudoo's logo. We'll then give it a name. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this Australian company. This is just to help us distinguish, and then you can actually see how if you create a company within Australia, how it behaves differently to if you had to create that company in, say, the UK, the USA, Canada, for example. So within Australia, we have to submit ABNs, which is an Australian business number. So I'm just going to put anything over here, and I'm going to say we're a business type other. In Australia, you have GST, so I'm going to say yes, this entity is registered for GST. So let's click save. And this will then upload that logo to be used on all your invoices and create the company. So there you can see the company's created and I've got an Australian company. So now what we can do is let's create another company, and this will help you to see how the different companies behave if they're in a different region. So we can add a different logo if we want. I don't think I have another one, so let's leave that blank for now. And what we'll do is we'll call this the UK company. Okay, so we call it UK. And what we'll do here is this is the current list of countries that we support. So we support quite a few. However, if we're not supporting your country, you can select other. If you'd like us to support your country, please let us know and we'll add local tax support and language support. So I'm going to choose United Kingdom, and there you can see GST in Australia, but it's VAT within the UK. So if your company is registered in the UK, a lot of the settings and the language you see within the application will change. Also, you've got a company registration number in the UK versus where in Australia you've got an ABN. So if we then change to Canada, we'll see Canada as GST and it's got a business number. Same thing if we change to USA, sales tax, and then an IN number. So let's keep to the United Kingdom for now. We'll just type a number and we'll call this other and we'll say, yeah, I'm registered for VAT. And we can say that. And now you can see we've got two companies. So we're the owner of both those companies. So we have a concept of security roles within Kudoo. So currently we support a security role of owner, which is myself since I created that company. Now an owner can do anything within that company, even delete that company if they so wish. We've also got another role, which is administrator. So administrator can do almost everything within a company except delete it. And the administrator will also not be able to see bill-in information or change bill-in information. Then we've also got another role, which is just a user, and those users will only be allowed to create timesheets. They won't be allowed to do much else. So if you want to switch between companies, this is what we call the draw. So if I go here and I switch, I'm now logged into the UK company. So if I'm in the UK company, anything I perform whether it's a project, invoice, timesheet, will be relevant to that UK company. If I'm in the Australian company, anything I perform will be relevant to that company. We've got over here, I can look at my account settings, I can also log out, and there we've got other settings over here. So if I want to go into the general settings, we can do anything. So whether it's banking, integrations, general, whatever we need to do, we can just have a quick access menu. Okay, so let's run through quickly now a bit of functionality. So we've got the dashboard. As we go through this webinar, you'll see we'll start populating a lot of these figures as we start create elements within the system. So we're in the Australian company, so let's go to services. And what we want to do is we want to create some services. So in this example, let's say we're a recruitment company, and within that we offer certain services that our contractors perform. So let's say, for example, they do some React development and they get paid on a time-based basis. So let's say they get $50 an hour. We want to charge GST and we want to say it's per hour. We can then create a template. We've also got the ability to create fixed price services. So let's say we've got a website hosting, and let's say, for example, this is a fee that we charge and it's a fixed price. So let's say we charge $1,000 per year. We can just then charge it as a fixed price. So now what we see we've got a time-based service and we've got a fixed type service. For the React development, it's at an hour for $50, and then the website hosting is a fixed price at $1,000. If we've made a mistake, we can also archive these services. We can then archive it. It then appears under the archive. We can then reinstate it, or we can permanently delete it. So let's reinstate it. So we'll reactivate that service, and now we've got some services. Now workers. So what will happen is we'll invite people into this company, and they'll submit timesheets on their behalf. So let's say at the end of the week they've performed 20 hours of React development and you need to invoice your customer. We'd want to let those contractors have the ability to log in and submit timesheets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a user. Okay, so I'm going to invite a new user and I'm going to say test1@test.com, and I'm going to choose type user. So when earlier I mentioned the different roles, these are the roles you can assign to these users or people you invite. So we're just going to call them a user. We've also got just a bit of information there. So we're going to save that user. So what that's going to do is that's going to send an email to that user. It's going to tell that user, look, you've been invited to the Australian company. Okay. And then that user will then have the ability to confirm their email and then log in and perform functionality. Okay, so if we go here and we go look at the emails, let's just refresh that. We've got accept invitation. So we say company invitation, Justin Trollope has invited you to join the company name. So we can then accept that invitation. Before we accept that invitation, let's create a customer. So then what will happen is you'll be able to see how the new user can actually submit a timesheet against a customer. So let's create a customer. We're going to call this customer Airstrip1. Any George Orwell fans out there? Let's call this John Doe. And we'll just use some basic information here, just for the purposes of this example. Okay, so we're going to save that customer. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got a customer, we've got some services, and we've invited someone to the system. So if we close this, let's log out over here. Now we've invited, let's say we've got a worker. So let's call this worker Desmond Tutu. Okay, we're going to set a password. Okay. Now Desmond can actually log in. Okay, so now what you can see is what Desmond can see compared to what Justin can see is very different. Okay, they don't see any revenue information, they don't see anything regarding the customers or any personal or confidential information. What they can see is some customers that have been added as well as the most recent projects. So if I wanted to submit a timesheet as Desmond, I could go into Timesheets. I could create a new timesheet. So let's say I wanted to select my period. I wanted to choose a customer. So airstrip 1, the customer we created earlier, and the service. Okay. So there, I can then put in the amount of hours. So 5, let's call it 5. I can also attach attachments if I'd like to. So let's say, for example, I wanted to attach PDFs or any form of supporting documentation. I can then attach it here. We can then either save it as a draft. Okay. So a draft hasn't been finalized. So a draft timesheet cannot be converted to an invoice. So what that means is you'll need to make sure that the workers or the employees, contractors, or anyone within the organization finalizes those timesheets. So if we then click on that timesheet, we can then finalize that timesheet. So yeah, there's just a message. So it says when you finalize a timesheet, you cannot change the status. It cannot be edited. So are you sure you want to finalize this timesheet? I'm sure, so I'm going to say yes. Okay, so what that's going to do is that's going to then finalize that timesheet. If I want to then email it to anyone, I can email it. Okay. Or if I want to view it, I can also sort this as we start adding more. And now you can see it went out of the draft status. If I go into the dashboard, I can see there's one finalized in timesheet. Okay, so Desmond's now successfully using the system. He's logged on. He submitted his first timesheet and finalized it. That's fantastic. So now let's go back in and let's invoice our customer, Airstrip 1, for the work that Desmond performed. So we'll log out here and we'll log back in as Justin. Okay, so now when we go look at Justin and we go to timesheets, notice how everything's changed. All of the menu items now have changed. The dashboard's changed. Justin's the company owner, so he can see a lot more details and have a lot more functionality than Desmond. So if we go into timesheets, since I've logged into as Justin, Justin hasn't submitted any timesheets. But if I go to all workers timesheet, I can see there's Desmond's. As we get more users, we can actually filter. So if I go, I only want to see Justin's, Justin doesn't have any. But if I want to see Desmond's, Desmond's appear. Can also then email or view it if I want to. But what we want to do now is we want to just work through a very simple example and invoice our customer, which is Airstrip 1, for the work that Desmond performed for them. So we go to Invoices, we'll create a new invoice, and there's 3 main types of invoices here. We can do a free text invoice. Free text invoice basically means it's just a quick ad hoc invoice, very simple to get off the ground. If, let's say, for example, something comes up and you just want to issue a quick invoice, you could use that. We can create an invoice from a project. Again, there's a question mark over here. If you hover over that, it'll give you a bit more information about what those types of invoices perform. So project invoices allows you to invoice your fixed price services. So when we created a service, we created the website hosting. You'd be able to then invoice the website hosting from a project invoice, as long as that fixed price service was associated with the project. And in this simple example, we're just going to do convert the timesheet to an invoice. So we'll click here. We'll search for the customer, Airstrip 1. Okay, and there we can see. So Desmond has a finalized timesheet for the time period 24th of September till the 30th of September. The service he performed was React development, and the rate is $50. So if we look here, performed 25 hours at $50, which gives us $1,250. When we earlier registered that company, we said we are registered for GST, so it's automatically included. If, for example, this is GST free, we could just take GST off. But we're going to include GST in this example. Sometimes what happens is also people don't want to invoice the entire timesheet. So they might want to invoice individual days. So let's say, for example, they wanted to do that. They could then actually invoice a specific day. So if we wanted to only invoice for the 25th and the 28th, we could do that too. However, we're going to do the full invoice. So we'll go next. Now you'll notice over here, we need to add bank information. So for our customers to pay us, they need to transfer into our bank account, and we want to display that bank information on our invoice. If we had to go next, it would give us a warning message and it wouldn't allow us to proceed. We can also put a message on that invoice. So let's say, for example, we wanted to tell the customer that this invoice is related to the work on a specific geographical region, or any sort of extra information we can add here. We can also attach supplemental documentation. So let's add a due date. We'll just say on the 5th. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll add that bank information. So let's say Westpac, let's put a BSP in. Again, if you were logged into the UK company, this would change. So different banks around the world have different ways of accepting account information. So we'll go in and I'll show you that now, but let's save that. Okay, so now we've got the bank information. So now what we can do is we can actually finalize that invoice. Our logo appears on the invoice. You can see the invoice number, the name of the company, our company ABN details, as well as the details of the customer, as well as the work we performed, and there's our bank information. Okay, so what we can do now is we can finalize that invoice. We're happy with it, we're ready to send it to our customer. So there you go. Now that invoice has been created, now there's a few options here. We can email it to our customer, so we can do that. We can also include the timesheets as an attachment. So we can include the timesheets, and we can include the attachments that are associated with the timesheet. We can email it to the customer, or we could email it to ourselves. We won't do that for now, but let's say, for example, a few weeks elapse and the 5th of October comes around and our customer is ready to pay. What we'll do is the customer will pay into our bank account, and we'll just mark that invoice as paid. It now appears in the paid screen. We can still email it if we want, and we can archive it if we want. Okay, now if we look over here, okay, we can actually see total paid invoices 1,375. Okay, and as we go through the months, this chart will start to update. Okay, as well as the average per month. So let's go into projects now. So projects, before I forget, so if we go into the UK company and I go into banking details, the UK uses a sort code and account number. So this is quite a cool thing, you know. So when you switch companies, the Kudoo automatically knows what country that company is registered under, and it adjusts all of the settings and details accordingly. So let's go into projects now. What we'll do is we'll go back to the Australian company and we'll create a project. So let's say, for example, we have landed a client now. So we've landed a client. This client is going to have some React development, and they're also going to have some hosting. So let's say it's a new, let's call it an e-commerce website, for example. Okay. So yeah, we're going to add to a new customer, or we could just create a customer here, but just for speed purposes, I'm just going to use an existing customer. Okay, now what we can do is we can actually add services to this project. So the benefits of this is so we can keep track of costs as well as revenue we make on a project. So this is really good if you want to start tracking things like gross profit on a project, as well as see how the project is tracking over the life cycle. Are you over budget? Are you under budget? That's what's really good to start linking and joining services to projects. It gives you a much better overview of how your projects are tracking. So let's say we're going to add React development, okay, and we're going to add website hosting. So there you can see the React development at $50 per hour, and we're also going to do website hosting at $1,000. Okay, we're going to go next. Okay, now because we chose a fixed price service, we want to know how do we invoice the customer. We don't have to set up rules, but often what will happen is when you're negotiating with your customer will say, okay, well, we'll pay a 20% deposit when the project starts, and then on the successful completion of that project or that fixed price service, we'll then pay the balance. So what we're going to do is we're going to say when the project starts, this customer is going to pay 20%. Okay, we're going to add the rule. So there you can see when the project starts, we should invoice the customer for $200. And when we've successfully completed the website hosting, we can then charge the customer the remaining $800. So we can review the project. We can see there's our customer details, the project name, the services that are included in the project. And then we're happy. So now we can create that project. And there the project is created. What's nice is now we can also submit timesheets against that project. Okay. So that's pretty great. And then that way you can track your users and your workers, contractors, employees, time spent upon that project. Okay. You can go into the project, you can archive it if you want, you can look at the services associated with it, and you can invoice. So if we look here, what we can do is let's work through a project invoice, and then we'll track back and work through a free text invoice. So we'll create a project invoice, we'll choose one of our projects, we've only got the e-commerce website, okay? And there the system knows. We set up that rule that said, okay, we need to invoice them for the 20%. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're happy with that. That's as per the rule we specified. We'll go next. We've still got the bank details that we set up earlier. We'll choose when the invoice is due. Okay, and there's the invoice. So 20% of the website hosting, okay, is $200. We've added GST and the customer needs to pay $220. We'll then finalize the invoice. The reason this is also blocked out is so that you can't accidentally double things up. So now there's the invoice, invoice number 2, okay, there's the total. Again, we can email or mark it as paid. If I go into the dashboard over here, you can see we've got a total of $220 of unpaid invoices. The project appears here. Now what we can do is we can also create a free text invoice. So let's say, for example, this customer, they're very happy with our services, the development, Desmond's doing a great job on development, the fixed price is going really well, but now an ad hoc expense appeared. So let's say Desmond had to fly up to Sydney and the customer Airstrip 1 had to refund Desmond's flight. So we'll go free text invoice, we'll go Airstrip 1. Now, we can create a service, but it's not something we normally charge to our customer. So it seems a bit silly to create a new service for something that we'll probably only ever use once. So what we're going to do is just create a free text invoice where we say flight to Sydney. And we're going to say that's 1. We're going to say the rate. Okay, we paid, generally it's about, let's call it $350. And we're going to leave GST off. So we can't claim GST on flights, for example, so we're just going to leave it off. We'll go next, select the due date, okay, and there we go. Now we've got an invoice for the flight to Sydney. We can then send that through to our customer. Okay, now what we can see is it's updated the amount of invoices that are unpaid. There's still that paid invoice. Okay, so that's really a high-level overview of the current state of functionality. We've got a few other things lying around. We've got integrations. So currently, if you want to integrate your system with Slack, so what this will do is anytime a timesheet is finalized or converted to an invoice, it'll give you a notification in Slack. So if we go add to Slack, this will redirect us. This is a development environment, so I'm not 100% sure if Slack's gonna like it, because normally it expects a production website before it redirects, but let's try. Okay, so let me just log in with that. And there we go. So that's picked up our Slack channel, and I can say anytime an invoice is finalized, we want to post to the Slack announcement channel. I can then authorize it, and there we go. It's going to redirect back here. Okay, and now it's going to Kudoo.cloud, Kudoo Cloud at Slack. And let's finalize a timesheet. Just create a quick one here. We'll say it's a project timesheet. Let's call this 8. Okay. Let's make sure we're in the right. Okay, there's the added integration. Okay. If I then finalize, we should get a nice little Slack notification sound. And there we go. Justin Trollope has finalized the timesheet. Okay. So that's all for now. That's a very quick run through. But yeah, hope you like it. If you want any more features, we're busy working on a few very exciting features, which we're really excited to release in the next month or so. So yeah, love to hear your feedback. Okay, cheers.